I'm not the only person, man, woman, whatever, chef,
Mhm.
not chef, artist, whatever, that's dealing with this, that's feeling that like, am I good enough? And I feel like every artist in any way, whether it's musicians or painters or journalists, anything where
Yeah.
you're taking a vision from your head and you're conceptualizing it and manifesting it into a actual tangible thing in the world. I think
Mhm.
anyone that does that is always going to second guess themselves because
Yes.
it's like literally you're taking yourself and you're putting it on. Well, for me, I'm taking myself and I'm putting it on this plate and I'm saying, hey, do you like it?
Hello and welcome back to The Perch from the Wyoming Tribune Eagle. I'm Noah Zahn, your local government reporter here. This week on The Perch, we're sharing a conversation that our arts and entertainment reporter Taylor Staples had with Petrina Peart, who is a local chef and the executive chef at the Wyoming Governor's Mansion. She recently competed in the first season of the new NBC show Yes Chef as one of 12 chefs selected to compete in the cooking show. That's who you heard at the start of the show. She was born and raised in Jamaica and didn't get into cooking until she joined the U.S. Air Force and was stationed at F.E. Warren in Cheyenne. In 2022, she competed in the cooking show, beat Bobby Flay, and said she knew that would not be her last appearance on a cooking show. The new show is hosted by Emmy Award-winning chefs Martha Stewart and José Andrés. Here's the conversation Taylor had with Chef Petrina now, which they recorded over Zoom.
Well,
Okay.
hello, Petrina. So nice to meet you.
Hi. Hi,
Yeah.
Taylor. It's nice to meet you. How are you?
I'm doing so good. How are you doing?
I'm doing very good. Thank you so much for
Yes.
asking.
Yes, yes, yes. So, out of curiosity, are you in Cheyenne right now, or are you still filming? Like, what's going on with that?
I am literally at the governor's residence right now. I
Ah,
just finished
that's
I
awesome.
just finished a lunch service with the first lady and the beef for backpacks.
Mhm.
Um, they had a task force meeting, and
Right.
I just fed those guys. And so
Oh, that's
now
awesome.
I'm here with you. So yeah, I'm definitely in Cheyenne.
That is awesome. Yeah, you're only a couple buildings from me, which is crazy, but this is so exciting. But
Oh,
yes, so I would just love to dive right in and ask you about your history with cooking. So how did you get
okay.
into it? How did you discover that you loved cooking? All of the good stuff.
I always laugh at this because I tell people I hated cooking growing up and they don't believe me because of how much I love it now, but I did. It wasn't very fun. And I had a very traditional grandmother
Mhm.
who, wanted ladies in the kitchen. And so I hated it then because, for me back then, I wanted to be outside with all my cousins and be
Mhm.
playing and stuff. So,
Right. That's
but it
so
wasn't,
funny.
isn't it? Yeah, no, she's somewhere laughing at me if you believe in the afterlife. But it wasn't until I joined the Air Force and I actually moved. My first Air Force base was here in Cheyenne, actually at F.E. Warren Air Force Base. And I spent 4 years here. And really, that's where the cooking thing started. It was my first time away from home.
Mhm.
I'd never been without my mom cooking me meals before. So it was kind
Yeah,
of like fend for yourself kind of thing. This is where
totally.
I feel like I tell people this is where Cheyenne is where I kind of became an adult because I left my home and I came here for 4 years and I got my
Yes.
first apartment here. I got my first car here. I got my first real life bank account here.
Yes. And you
And
discovered
so,
your career, your passion. Yeah.
yeah, at the time I didn't know it was passion. At the time it was survival. It later
Yeah.
became passion, But it started here and I would just like cook for friends every once in a while. And then it became more of a passion once I went overseas to Baviano Air Force Base, Italy, and Incirlik, Turkey. And
Oh,
the thing about being overseas is that it brings us together. We're already kind of have that military camaraderie anyways, but being so far away from home, it's even like more so, especially for like Thanksgiving and Christmas when we can't go
totally.
home, we tend to stick together and cook for each other and do like potluck kind of deals. And so that really reinforced that whole cooking thing that had started to
Yeah.
ignite for me. And so I just started cooking for my friends that were about to be deployed or something like that. And, what started as a survival thing just took off into a passion thing. And then going to
Yeah.
the Italian farmers markets during the week and it just grew into something that was like bigger than I ever thought it would be.
Totally. I was just gonna ask how being in the West kind of influenced all of that stuff and like did it change your food tastes and like kind of influence the foods you were making for your friends and yeah.
Absolutely. So, Cheyenne and Wyoming as a whole is still to this day the best steak I've ever had in my life.
Mhm.
And even though I don't really eat meat anymore, I still cook meat. I taste it. I do everything with it. I just don't eat it as much as I used to, you know.
Mhm.
Um, it's just not really in my diet as much.
Yeah.
But even with that, Cheyenne slash Wyoming is the place I've still had the best steak of my life. And
Mhm.
even going to Europe and traveling East Coast, West Coast, everywhere I've been, it's still been the place where I'm like, that's the best steak I've ever had. You
Mhm.
know?
That's
And I
so
think,
cool.
you know, it really inspired me to be into that like wild game, outdoorsy kind of feel. Like I am not a cowboy or cowgirl by any means. That is not what I'm saying. But you know,
Totally.
you can convince me to go fishing. You know, I'll be the one to pack the picnic baskets because I
Yes.
like packing all the cute stuff and the, you know,
Mhm.
the silverware. So I'm
You're
that
along for the
person.
ride.
Yeah,
Right.
I'm that person. As long as someone else put the worm on the hook for me, I'm good to go, you know? So
100%.
so you know, since being in Cheyenne this second time around, because now I'm on my so I've been in total, I've lived in Cheyenne for about 8.5 years, almost 9 years. The
Mhm.
first four in the Air Force, then overseas, and then coming back after the pandemic. And now I'm on my 4.5 years, the second time around.
Mhm.
Um, I've definitely crossed over into the wild game arena as far as like bison, elk, moose, deer. I
Ooh.
mean, I've and then like going fishing, like I said, and catching bass. Like I've definitely that's influenced me a lot more being in Cheyenne than it's ever had in any other place. So yeah.
Yes. Yes. And I'd also love to go back to your abroad experience that you were talking about. So, what are some of those cuisines? Because I feel like a lot of chefs make these very, very fancy cuisines, especially when they go abroad. So, what are some of those dishes that you ended up loving making that you never thought you would make in your life ever?
It's it's so funny that you say that because one of those things is like a brandad, and it's a very traditional French dish, and it incorporates cod and potatoes. And you would
Mhm.
never think, I mean, fish and chips, yeah, fish and potatoes, but like fish and or cod and mashed potatoes, that's not a typical thing. And I think
Yeah.
like that's one of those things that I've incorporated into my cuisine from just being classically trained in French cuisine and
Mhm.
spending 6 months in Bordeaux. And then another one of those things I would say from the travels is polenta. Um, because I grew up in Jamaica, I was born in Jamaica and we grew up eating we called it cornmeal porridge, but really it's the same as polenta, and it's not something I grew up liking. And it's funny because once I was stationed at Aviano, Italy, that was one of the first meals that I had off
Mhm.
base, and I thought, oh my
Incredible.
God,
Yeah.
this is horrible. Why would they eat this? And
Right.
it ended up being so good. So it's just funny how life kind of like bring those things back to you. And that's
Totally.
one of the things I try to portray in my cuisine and in my food. I feel like the things that make me stand out is the experiences I've had and brought back with
Totally.
me. And it's just so funny. The more I travel, the more I realize how cuisines across cultures are so connected. You know, that I
Mhm.
could eat cornmeal porridge in Jamaica and hate it, but then go to Italy 25 years later and have
And love
bass
it.
and polenta, but it's called polenta, so it's fancy, you know? And
Mhm.
it's just such a funny thing. And that same thing goes back to Wyoming. Just getting that farm fresh egg and the fresh chicken and the fresh milk and goat's milk and all that. And then that transfers to my time living in Jamaica and just having like a couple goats and cows and stuff and being able to
Right.
walk outside and pick things from the tree or from the ground. It's like I just love how I can make that connection across cultures with food, and I like to bridge that
Totally.
gap for a lot of people.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Everything seems to come really full circle like that. It's so
It
funny.
really does. I mean, it
And
takes years sometimes, but it really
Mhm.
does come full circle.
Yes, and like palette changing too. I heard that it changes every 7 years. I'm not 100% sure if
100%.
that's true, but yeah.
Yes.
But yes. And then kind of related to that, what do you feel is deceptively hard about cooking? Like something when you finally got into it, whether it was abroad or initially when you were just cooking for friends, like what is something you had to really learn and be like, dang, this is a lot harder than I thought it would be. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't want this to sound bad in any way, but I don't think cooking is hard.
Mhm.
I think cooking is time consuming.
Mhm.
So here's my thing. I think it just depends on the amount of time and effort that you want to put into it, right?
Totally.
Because you can have a mashed potato that you just kind of boil the potato, get a traditional masher, some potato, some salt, pepper, butter, milk, and mash it traditionally. You got the lumps, and that's great.
Mhm.
Or you can have palm puree, which is the same thing, but this time you're steaming the potatoes to avoid all the extra moisture from boiling it. Then you're
Mhm.
letting it air dry. You're adding your salts, your thyme, you're pureeing with cream, with butter, and then you're passing it through a fine mesh sieve or chinois. And
Mhm.
then you're getting the creamiest, silkiest potato you've ever had in your life. Both
Yeah.
of those things are easy. But the thing that separates those two is a matter of effort and time. How much time do you want to spend on this? Do you want to do it in 30 minutes, the Rachel Ray style, or do you want to
Mhm.
do it in 2.5 to 3 hours, like, Gordon Ramsay style? It's so I don't think
Totally.
anything in the kitchen is really difficult or um unfigure outable, if that's a word. I know
Mhm.
it's not a word, but I just think it depends
Right.
on the effort and the time you're willing to put into that, just like anything else, really.
Totally. No, I 100% agree with you there because I didn't like cooking until I moved out here either. And I was like, but it really is like how much effort are you willing to put into this dish? And there's some where you can finagle it to where you really don't have to put that much effort into it. It's just
Yeah,
like put a lot of seasonings, do like I eyeball everything personally. And I
those are
feel
the best, right?
yes, the dishes where you can just eyeball throw things together. It's like, oh, love this. But
Yeah.
that's personally why I prefer cooking to baking, but I could be alone
hmm
in that. So,
hmm
but but yes. And then I'd love to know how you get inspiration for your dishes. So, do you kind of just throw things together, eyeball? Is it intuitive? Yeah, how does that process go?
So D, all of the above, or
Mhm.
E, all of the above, whichever one that is. So it's all of the above. So for me, I when I describe my style of plating, if you look at my Instagram or my website, it's very
Mhm.
colorful. For me, I think it's very feminine when I describe it. There's lots of colors, reds, yellows, greens, blues, if I can get blues.
Mhm.
Um, there is a lot of I do a lot of soft edges. I do a lot of for what I would consider feminine plating. It's just very healing. It's very welcoming. It's very warm. And so for me, a lot of times my inspiration comes from just being outside, being in nature, especially during the springtime. All the
Yes.
colors, all the
Yes.
colors are everywhere. My God, if you can't be inspired by nature in springtime, then your eyes are closed.
I
So
love that.
it's you know what I mean? Like especially
Mhm.
this time of the year. Right now our state's still a little gray and
Oh, I
gray
know.
and brown.
And it's gonna snow too
Yeah, but
tomorrow.
give it about 3 weeks. Every
Mhm.
color is going to be visible everywhere, and that's my favorite time. And so
Yes.
I like to use nature as a form of inspiration when what I see inspires me.
Mhm.
Sometimes if I'm stuck on a recipe, I'll just go to the grocery store and just kind of walk around that fresh produce section. I spend most of my time in the produce section because, that's where all the colors are. That's where the flavor and texture is. So a lot
I
of
love
that inspires me. A lot of the seasonal ingredients inspires me. And then just what I do, so I know a lot of chefs, they have traditional standardized menus and recipes, and I like to veer off from that in a way that I don't want to have a standard menu for everyone to choose from. I
Mhm.
want to create something that is special to that individual. So a lot of times when people call me for an event, they're expecting me to just send over some PDF document and they choose A, B, C, D.
Mhm.
But for me, it's like, okay, let's set up a phone call. Call me. Who are we
Yeah.
planning this for? If it's you, tell me what you like. What's your favorite color? What's your favorite textures? What's your favorite dessert?
Oh,
Like I want to
be my private chef,
incorporate,
please.
right? But that's the experience I want to give people is that unforgettable experience. It's that once in a
Yes.
lifetime experience. And it's not just about the food. I'm not the greatest chef in the world, but what I do is I take everything. I take some of that guest's personality. I take my own personality. I take my experience and excuse me. And then I take what inspires me and I create something that is unique to this specific day and this
Mhm.
specific event. And that's my favorite thing. And I think that's
Yeah.
why people, like what I do and they come back to me is because it's special and they know that every time they come to me, it's going to be a different experience. They're not going to have the
Mhm.
same chicken
Exactly.
Alfredo. It's going to be something that they
Yes.
didn't have last time. And
Mhm.
so that's how I like to present and approach cooking.
Oh, I love that. I love that so much. Do you feel, I kind of want to shift to the show a little bit
Hmm.
now, but do you
Yeah,
feel
of course.
like that approach kind of changed when you got to the show? Obviously, no spoilers or anything, but yeah, did you kind of have that same like intuition, colorful vibe when you got to the show, or did the time crunch kind of change things for you? And yeah, how did that go?
So I would say yes, it did. I tried to keep that trueness of myself, which is a part of me is taking risks, which is like n not always a traditional approach to things. So, if it's like something where it's like a cheesecake, I'll give you a cheesecake. It might not look how you're used to it looking. It might be
Yeah.
deconstructed, or it might be presented differently. So yeah, I think I did take on that same style of approach of being true to myself and how I like to express myself through food. But I
Mhm.
did find it a little difficult just because there are intricacies that I like to put on the plate. There are things that I like to do. I like to take people on a culinary journey. And with only 30 minutes,
It's so you have to sacrifice some things. Yeah, it's
yeah,
so
it's a quick
difficult.
journey. It's not very long. It's like,
Mhm.
let's go.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, the quick thinking is the crazy part about shows like this to me. I'm like,
It's
how do you guys
killer.
do it? Yes, but I heard that your brother nominated you. So what
Yes.
was your reaction when you found out that he nominated you and you would potentially be on the show?
It's funny because I thought, especially when I found out he nominated me, but more so when I saw the video that he submitted of the nomination, that was surprising to me because I thought I watched it and I don't know if you'll see it on camera, but I thought, okay, maybe a little bit, but that's not me. And
Yeah.
the funny thing is, as the show progresses, I'm
Mhm.
thinking, okay, maybe he was a little bit right.
Mhm. Mhm.
So it's not very fun to be called out like that by someone who knows you personally and then
Yeah.
having to also admit that, dang, they were right about their assessment. So
Right.
um it's a learning experience. I'm working through it. I
Mhm.
called my therapist. It's fine.
Working through it. It was a
Yeah,
healing
yeah,
experience. Well,
yeah, exactly.
because that's what I think is so interesting about the show is that they do take chefs who have these like personal difficulties and just yeah, stuff like that
Yeah.
and then kind of like turn it on their heads and put them under this, pressure to cook and everything. And it's about personal growth, which I thought was really, really cool. So,
Mhm.
how do you feel? What was kind of your struggle going into the show? And then how do you feel like you overcame that?
So, my biggest struggle going on the show is just being such an overthinking perfectionist in a way that it's almost crippling sometimes when I have a vision for how something I would like something to be presented and it doesn't end up that way. So it's very crippling at times where it's like, have to pull myself out of it to say, okay, pivot, redirect, find a different way,
Yes.
and but then it also leads to this sort of thing, and I think maybe more women deal with it more, but this like feeling of imposter syndrome where it's like if it doesn't work out perfectly every single time, then I feel like
The world
I'm
is
a
crumbling.
I'm a
Yes.
flaw. The world is crumbling. I should
Yes.
just go under a rock and disappear forever, And that's my biggest struggle is like learning that, you know, this one moment doesn't define every moment. It only defines this one moment, and it doesn't erase every great thing that I've ever done. And
Yeah.
it doesn't speaks for everything in the future that I will do. So that's my biggest flaw. And that's kind of what my brother spoke to. Um, and to be honest, as far as the show goes, I'm still working on that.
Mhm.
I would love to say I'm healed and it's great, but I'm not.
It's an
I
ongoing
did
journey. Yes.
Right. There is some things I did learn from the show, which kind of like opened my eyes to say, okay, just because you had one good dish or one bad dish doesn't represent the entire experience. It's only in that
Right.
moment, you know? I mean, I think there's a quote that's like, you get 60 seconds in every minute just because, or 60 minutes in every hour, just because you have one bad one doesn't mean the other 59 are horrible or something like that. So,
Totally. Mhm.
right. So it's just that lesson to say, accept it, bounce back and keep going. And
Yes.
just not even with the show, but with anything. If I get an appetizer and it's not as crunchy as I want it to be, it's not the end of the world. It's like,
Yes.
like
Yes.
pivot and get it together and get back in
Get it
there. And
together.
it's like, but that's where that perfectionist come from. And I know like I'm aware enough to know there's no such thing as a perfect dish, but I
Mhm.
think as artists, as creative people, we always seem to have that marker that we're always striving for. And I don't necessarily think it's 100% bad thing. I think it's like a 80% great thing, 20% bad thing, especially if it's hindering you from moving forward. So I
Yes.
try to use it to my advantage as best as I can. And the time that I can't, I try to learn from it?
Yeah. As a fellow overthinker and also perfectionist, I totally relate to everything.
Yeah.
I totally agree. Like it's good to have that goal and like strive high, but it's
Yeah.
like it's crippling sometimes,
Yeah.
seriously. So dang, I'm glad that you kind of got to work through that and learn some things and like
Me too.
be in that position and stuff. But
No,
yeah.
me too. And honestly, I there were times on this show I felt really vulnerable and I felt like exposed, but I also felt like, I'm not the only person, man, woman, whatever, chef,
Mhm.
not chef, artist, whatever, that's dealing with this, that's feeling that like, am I good enough? And I feel like every artist in any way, whether it's musicians or painters or journalists, anything where
Yeah.
you're taking a vision from your head and you're conceptualizing it and manifesting it into a actual tangible thing in the world. I think
Mhm.
anyone that does that is always going to second guess themselves because
Yes.
it's like literally you're taking yourself and you're putting it on. Well, for me, I'm taking myself and I'm putting it on this plate and I'm saying, hey, do you like it? And
Hmm.
if you say no, my soul is crushed.
Right. You're like, this is my work. This is like my love. Yes.
It's like, okay, I'll just go die now.
Yeah, literally. Oh my
Being on
gosh.
the show definitely made me feel exposed and vulnerable. But the best part is I kept thinking to myself that if I feel this way, there's at least two people in the world, probably
Yes.
2,000 people in the world that probably feels this way too. And if I'm the vessel or the tool that's being used to expose that feeling of not good enough, that feeling of vulnerability, then I'm okay with that. I want to let people know that even when you're great, you have self-doubt, and that's okay. As long as
Yeah.
you use it to motivate you and not cripple you, then it's okay.
Mhm. And not give up. Exactly. I totally
Exactly,
agree.
exactly. The only difference between a winner and a loser is someone that has tried one more time.
Agreed. Totally agreed. Oh my gosh.
So I just
Love.
need to try one more time, with anything, with life, with lessons, with this imposter syndrome, with this fear of failure, everything. It's just a matter of keep going, keep going, keep going.
I agree. Say it louder for the people in the back. I agree. I
Yeah,
agree. But
I really love that about the show. I love that they took this premise on of just being like, okay, all these chefs can cook, they're all great, but there's some vulnerability, there's some weakness that they're dealing with, and we're bringing them here to kind of face
yeah,
that. So that's what I really love about the show. That's what I really enjoyed about it, and I hope that comes
yes.
across.
Ah, and I also wanted to ask you about the hosts. So obviously Martha Stewart is huge. Jose Andres is huge. What was your reaction to meeting them? I don't know if they were exactly like your chef inspos when you were getting into cooking, but yeah, what was that like for you?
Okay, so first, Martha Stewart is the reason I tablescape. I mean, if you look at any of my social media and you see how I set my table as a chef with like just the centerpieces and everything, like she's the reason I tablescape. Her 12
Yeah.
center lemon, 12 lemon centerpieces or whatever the heck she was doing back in the 90s, like that's what I came home to after school. And I watched it with my grandma, so it was great. I love Martha Stewart for that. And Jose Andres, he is just such a beautiful human being, a beautiful entrepreneur. He has such a big heart, and excuse me, I feel like we really connected in that front. It's funny because I thought about quitting my job one time and just kind of just doing that world central kitchen that he's a part of. It's just so inspiring. He's helped people in Haiti and California with the fires, in Palestine. I mean, he's just always there, and I appreciate that about him.
Yeah.
He is the epitome of a human being that cares about other human beings, and like I really respect that and I admire him so much. So when you see the show and if I'm like constantly blushing or
Yeah.
giggling around him, it's because I really admire him so much. I
Me
think he's
too.
like such a good
Relatable.
person, you know?
Yes. I
And
love
of
that.
course, Martha, she's a legend in her own, but it's like it's a
But
different admiration.
right, meeting them in person and like realizing like, oh my gosh, you guys are
Yeah.
just like incredible human beings as well
Yeah.
as chefs is like, oh my gosh. Like that had to have been so surreal. I'm right
No,
there with
it totally was. It totally
yes.
was. Even still, I'm like, oh my goodness.
I just kind of wanted to ask you the future of your cooking and where you feel like, do you think you're gonna stay in Cheyenne for a while or yeah, what are you thinking?
Well, so right now I'm at the governor's residence. I'd like to continue being here at least, for the rest of this administration for sure. I'm not sure, 2 years from now is a long time. It's not, but it is,
That's true. Yeah.
I can't necessarily speak for what's to come in the future, but I can tell you right now, um, I'm very booked here at the residence. Apart from that, in my own private sector as a business owner for Gaia's Harvest and doing private events, I have a pretty good client list with that too, so I'm staying busy there. And then also, we're creating a chef's garden here at the residence, and we're incorporating a bunch of different seeds and plants that we're getting from the botanical gardens, and we're just creating a foundation for a beautiful space that that can that can continue on in the history of
Yes.
Cheyenne. And so as far as I know, for the near future, I am here. I am in Cheyenne. I'm in Wyoming, and I love it.
Love
I've
that.
created a very small family and community here, and I'd like to think that I've created a space where a lot of the chefs and the local business owners come together and we collaborate and we do so in
Yes.
such an artistic way that I love it. And I hope to create more experiences like that. So, Cheyenne, Wyoming, you're stuck with me for a while.
I love that. Oh my gosh.
The first season of the new show will begin streaming on NBC's Peacock next week on April 28th if you'd like to check out how Petrina did on that show. But now here's Taylor again to bring us a roundup of some of the upcoming events in Cheyenne and Laramie County this week.
So today, April 25th, the Cheyenne Gaming Convention kicks off day 1 at 1 p.m. and goes until 11:45 p.m. at the Red Lion Hotel and Conference Center. Also, the Odd Couple female version will be performing at the Laramie County Community College Surbrugg Prentice Auditorium at 7:30 p.m., both today and tomorrow. Then at the library, there will be a dementia caregiver support group from 2 to 3 p.m., and in the evening, comedian Chris Delia will be at the Cheyenne Civic Center at 8 p.m. On Saturday, April 26th, the Cheyenne Gaming Convention continues day 2 from 8 a.m. to 11:45 p.m. at the Red Lion. Also, Meadowlark Elementary has a craft fair from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., and the Frontier United Methodist Church has a Mother's Day Marketplace event also from 9 to 3. Then, the Cheyenne Botanic Gardens has a mixed media bear painting workshop from 10 a.m. to 12:30, and at LCCC, Lindy Kirkbride is hosting a Come Spring Again Poetry Night in honor of her late husband at 7 p.m. And finally, the Historic Atlas Theater also has a silent movie night at 7 p.m. for a showing of The Cameraman. On Sunday, April 27th, this is the last day for the Cheyenne Gaming Convention at Red Lion, which will go from 8 a.m. to 11:45 p.m. Then, Cats and Coffee Connections is hosting their April Book Club event with book The Silent Patient from 4 to 6 p.m., and comedian Zane Lamprey is coming to Blacktooth Brewery to perform stand-up at 8 p.m. On Monday, April 28th, the library will have a showing of The Life of Pi for their series Matinee Movies for Mindful Aging for Adults from 1:30 to 4:30 p.m. On Tuesday, April 29th, the Cheyenne Creativity Center has a Paper Pop-Ups craft event from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. On Wednesday, April 30th, the library has chair yoga and poetry from 11 to 11:40 a.m., as well as an intro to knitting class from 6 to 7:30 p.m. And finally, on Thursday, May 1st, this is the first day of the Great Western Alpaca Show at the Archer Event Center. That'll take place from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. And finally, the Thankful Thursdays this week is for the Mule Deer Foundation, and doors open at 4 p.m. at the Lincoln Way Event Hall.
Thank you for that, Taylor. And before we close out today, here's a quick recap of some of our top stories and headlines from the past week. Hundreds gathered again this weekend in front of the Wyoming State Capitol building to protest the actions of the Trump administration and criticize the actions of the Wyoming Freedom Caucus. This time, several speakers spoke to the audience about the harms of political divisiveness in the country and the U.S. involvement in providing military aid to Israel. District Court Judge Peter H. Furlicker said one of Wyoming's school finance consultants was exercising bias during witness testimony in a lawsuit against the state filed by the Wyoming Education Association in 2022. In February, Furlicker ruled in favor of the Wyoming Education Association and the 8 school districts that joined as plaintiffs, including Laramie County School District 1, and found that Wyoming has unconstitutionally underfunded its public school system. The state has since appealed Furlicker's ruling to the Wyoming Supreme Court. This year, following a lengthy application process, Central High School mathematics teacher Julie Grant and East High School science teacher Jennifer Merriam have made it to the state finalist level for the Presidential Award for Excellence in Mathematics and Science Teaching. Now, both women are eligible to be recognized nationally. And finally, a Colorado woman accused of planning with an acquaintance to call bomb threats to the Laramie County governmental complex in September pleaded not guilty Monday in district court. That's all for this week's episode of The Perch. Thank you for tuning in, and be sure to check back in next Friday for more.